Hi, I am Laura Coulter, and I'm taking the Coursera virtual reality specialization. I am currently in the interactive models class, and it helps me to try to teach others what I've learned. So I've practiced it a few times, and I've put together a video showing how I took the professor's videos and instructions and made it work on my own or on my own project. So to start with, I'm going to create a new Unity project and I'm going to call it Teleportation Practice B because I've already got one and I want to name it. And I know it's saved in my documents, Unity project. So I'm going to click Create Project. And I'm going to create a very brief scene to demonstrate what I've learned and how I made it work. It was a lot of trial and error for me, so I think I've got it smoothed out. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is create a new 3D object, a plane. I want to put a ground down for me, so I'm going to click on the inspector and I'm going to make sure that the transform is reset so that it's all on 0. Now, I also want to color this. So I'm going to go down to the project window and create a material. I'm going to call it ground in this case, because I want it to be I've been working with grass and trees and stumps. So I'm going to make this green, kind of outdoorsy. And I'm going to apply it to my plane by dragging it directly on there. Oh, whoops, drag it on here. There we go, perfect. Okay, so there is my ground. And I've got a main camera, I've got a directional light. And for the moment, I'm going to click on my directional light and kind of pull it up because it doesn't change any of the direction, but I really want it out of my way. So I'm going to need an asset. You can create and make a little slot. You can just create a shape to transport to. I want to use my stump. So I'm going to go to my asset store, my downloads, and I have a low poly woods package. So I'm going to go to the L, low poly vegetation. This one, I'm going to click import. And it's all selected, so I'll import it all. It'll just take a moment, but if it takes too long, I'll compress this part of the video. Okay, it's in. So I'm going back to my scene and I am going to add a stump. So I'm going to go into the prefabs and I'm going to find my stump and I'm going to drag it onto, you know what, I'm going to drag it up here and then I'm going to reset it to 0 because you notice way up here in the corner is where my stump is. So I'm going to transform reset to 0 and I'm going to move it off to the side. And it's actually a little tall. I can't land on it, so I'm going to scale it down to be shorter. And now I have a prefab that I can jump to. So the next thing we need to do is download the packets that actually allow us to have this interaction. So I've got a couple of shortcuts over here. The first one you need is the Google Cardboard shortcut. So, well, actually, let's go into the asset store and download the VR samples that Unity provides. If you've been doing this class, you probably have it in your little download section. So VR samples by Unity Technologies, click import. And you'll get a warning that it's going to change everything. We're going to have to fix that later if we need to. So go ahead and click import. And this may take a moment, so I will definitely speed up the video or edit this part out if it takes too long. You do want to click import. And then this is the part that takes a little bit longer. Okay, you can see that one has finished downloading. Now we have some new things in here, VR sample scenes, standard assets. These are super important for what we're going to do. So the next thing you need is the Google VR for Unity. So I have a shortcut on my desktop. I'm going to open File Location. So this is what your package looks like. Google VR for Unity 1.1 is what I'm using. So I'm going to click it and drag it over to my project window, drop it off, and wait for it to do its magic. So I need to import all of it. This will take another moment. I will compress this because I know how annoying it is to sit and wait and watch somebody else do this. Or maybe not. All right, that one's done. The last one we need is the VR interactive utils or interaction utils. Let's see, interaction utils. This is the one that we get from the class. It's in the readings, and you've got to download it. It downloads as a GZ for me. So I had to just rename it and change the .gz to .unity package, and then it was able to work. This one is very short, and it will be very quick to import. But it all falls apart if you don't have all three of these things. All right, so you'll see some warnings coming across the bottom. As long as they are yellow, we are not having a problem. Okay, so we have what we need. I've got a stump. And now we need to create an empty game object. So I'm going to the hierarchy and I'm clicking Create, Create Empty. And I'm going to rename this Camera Base. That's the name he used in the video. And basically what this means is that your main camera can't be moved around. But other objects can be moved around. So if you just attach your main camera to another object by making it a child, then you can move the camera around by moving the object around. Since we don't have avatars yet, we're using a camera base. In the next class, we work with avatars. So I'm assuming that we will be putting the camera base inside the head of the avatar. I've been practicing that a little bit. Kind of need to be careful where you put your camera because I put it inside my avatar's head neck. And when I got the teleportation to work, I turned around and looked and all my avatar's clothes were still at the original spot. So you kind of have to choose carefully where you put your camera so that everything moves with it. All right. So now that we have our camera base, go down to the project window. And I want you to look for VR samples, open that one, VR sample scenes, scroll into it and look for the prefabs, open that. Then at the bottom, there is utils. Go ahead and open that folder. There are 4 items in here. We need main camera. So click it and drag it onto the camera base in the hierarchy so that it becomes a child of the camera base. Now, notice that it has a lot of stuff now on this particular camera. We need a lot of these things. But what we don't need is the original main camera that came with this. So I'm going to click on the original main camera, right-click, and delete so that it's gone and we're not confused anymore. So I'm going to select the main camera again, the one that's the child of the camera base. And I'm going to notice that it has position at 0, 2, and 0. When I played this in the game that I'm working on, 2 was a little too high of a view, so I'm going to change mine to 1.2. That's about where my avatar's head will be in my particular scale. So you can leave yours at 2 or change it if you like. Now, we are missing one little thing here. So this came in with camera. It came in with the VRI Raycaster, which we need, VR input, which is super important. All of these things are pretty important, but we're still missing the gaze only selection radial script. So what we need to do is I'm going to click Add Component, and I'm going to choose Scripts. And right here, I'm going to choose Gaze. Oops, I'm going to spell gaze right. Gaze only selection radial. Click it, and now it's in there. Now, in this field, the gaze only selection radial, we need to make some changes here because the selection and VR input needs something in the fields. So I'm going to click the dot to the right of the selection to bring out my options. And of the 4 options that are there, I'm going to choose the last one, UI selection bar. I'm going to click on it, and it fills in that field for us. So I can close that little pop-up window. And now for the VR input, I'm going to click that dot to the right of it. And we only get one option for that, which is the main camera. So we populate it with the main camera, and then uncheck the require click button. Okay, this should be all we need to do to the camera. I'm just kind of closing out my windows here so that I can make sure I have everything I need. Yep, gaze only, okay. So now, select the object that you want to teleport to. In my case, this is the stump. And I'm going to do a search in the project window. So there's a lot of scripts and stuff in here. So I found it easier to do a search. So I'm going to do a VR action harness. So if I click on this, I'll see that it is VR action harness. And I'm going to take that VR action harness and script and drag it onto my teleport target, which is my stump. Okay, for clarity's sake, I'm going to rename my stump to stump teleport target so that whenever I say teleport target, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so we have just moved the VR action harness onto the stump teleport target. You can see it right here. Now I'm going to search for VR teleport target. So VR teleport target. There's tele. Click it, make sure this is the one I need. Yes, it is. I'm going to do the same thing. Click it and drag it onto my stump. Okay, and the last thing I need to do is find VR interactive item. There's a lot of VR interactive. So if I press I for item, it should narrow it down to the 1. Now here I can verify and then drag it on there. Good. Now I'm going to select my teleport target so that I can see what I've got. So I'm going to kind of close up a few things so we can see them clearer. Okay, I've got my VR action harness, my VR teleport target, my VR interactive item. All that we're missing now is the collider. So click Add Component. Oh, we were searching for gaze only, so to clear that, hit that little X in the next to the search box. Now we're going to add a physics, and I'm going to choose Capsule Collider because it kind of goes to the shape of whatever asset I've got collected. All right, good. Now we have a capsule collider. I'm going to close it up. Now let's take a look at what we added here. Under VR Action Harness, I want to have some items in here under the selection radial. So I need to click the button for the selection radial and choose main camera. That's my only option in that list. So, whoops, did I put it in there? Yes, I did. I can leave interactive item alone, and I'm going to make sure that the require click is unchecked. That click that they're talking about is on a Google Cardboard. You can use a button or you can use a gaze. If you leave the require click checkbox activated, then they'll have to use the button in order to move. And not all of these cardboards actually have buttons. So I prefer the gaze and the timing. All right, now let's move on to the VR teleport target. And in this case, we need to transform to teleport field. What that is we're taking something to the teleport object. Okay, so we've got a teleport object. What are we taking there? Well, we're taking our camera there, really. So since we can't move the camera, we can move the camera base. I'm going to take that camera base and drag it into that field, transform to teleport. So I want to move the camera base, or in the future, it will be my avatar. So I'm going to move the avatar to the new teleported area. And that's how you do that. So we're under teleport target. And then underneath that, there's camera. Select the selector buttons from the right and attach main camera to it. Now, the VR interactive item we're going to leave as is. I am going to do a file save scene, and I haven't named it yet. So I am going to name this teleportation practice B. That's the scene that I'm in. And again, I'm only naming it B because I already have another one. Okay, now that that's saved, I'm going to enter play mode just to kind of see what it looks like. All right, there's my stump right in front of me, but when I press Alt and mouse around and Control and mouse around, it doesn't allow me to see because we're building to cardboard and not to the desktop. And so we don't have that emulation. I think that there are some packages that can help with that, but I haven't installed them yet. So what I'm going to have to do is send this to my game, to my phone, build it to my phone to make sure it works. This is a good time to go over how to build to the phone and make sure all those settings are right, because we did do some tangly stuff in here. So now I'm going to go to File, Build Settings, and the first thing that I want to do is uncheck all of these things because I do not want to build all of those sample scenes to my phone. I just don't. It'll take forever. But I do want to add the open scene that I've got. So I'm going to click Add Open Scene, which should be Teleportation Practice B. Now, if you look on the left, the platform is a PC, Mac, and Linux standalone. That's because we brought in the VR samples, and that runs on Oculus, and it's assuming Oculus, so it has to be on a computer. We don't want that. We're going to switch the platform to Android. So I'm going to click Android, and I'm going to click Switch Platform. And this takes a long time. So I'm going to kind of fade out on this. And, well, it did take a long time earlier. Let's see. Yeah, it's going to take a long time to do this. So I'm going to cut back out of this, and I'm going to let you probably want to pause the video and let yours finish switching platforms as well. Okay, that took a really long time. It took about 20 minutes for me. I'm assuming it was similar for you. Now, don't worry, in the future, when you're not switching, your builds will be very, very quick, and you might even have time to get up and get a glass of water at the most on future builds. So what we were doing was we added the open scene and took off the others, and we switched platform to Android. We leave all of these Android things as they are, and we're not quite ready to build yet. So we need to click on Player Settings. And over here on the right, you will make sure that Android is selected. I'm in the inspector. Scrolling down to Virtual Reality Supported and make sure it's checked. And then this one lists Oculus. Now, again, this came in with the VR sample, so we have to change that. Select Oculus and choose the minus sign to remove it. The list is now empty. Choose the plus sign and select Cardboard because we're building for cardboard here. Now, if you scroll down, the package name is what goes here, And if you're building your own, it may not have this filled in, and you do have to make sure that it's filled in because it has thrown an error for me before. Now, the minimum API level. Well, for Oculus, the minimum API level required is 21, but for Cardboard, it's only 19. So I'm going to switch that to 19 to make it available to a little bit more. The only other thing I want to do, I got an error earlier. I'm going to close this really quick. I got an error earlier about anti-aliasing causing major problems or slowing down a mobile. So I'm going to go to Edit, Project Settings, and then I'm going to choose Quality. And I'm going to go down to the section on rendering where it says anti-aliasing, and I'm going to disable that. That way I don't get that error and my computer is not worried about me in the least. So I'm going to click File, going back to Build Settings, double checking. We've got everything ready. My phone is plugged in, and I have already done the developer mode, so we already know how to do all that. I'm going to click Build and Run. Now, you cannot build it in the Assets folder. I already threw that error. So I'm going to back out one breadcrumb to the Teleportations Practice B page. I'm going to click New Folder and create a Builds folder. And I'm going to enter that Builds folder and call this Teleportation Practice B, even with the theme. And I'm going to click Save. So now it'll just take a few moments to build this. It's trying to find my suitable Android device. If this takes too long, I will, of course, compress it. Okay, my build has finished. So I'm going to unplug my phone. And I see that I have the two little stereoscopic windows. So I'm going to load this into my Cardboard to check it out and make sure that I can teleport. Okay, so I don't see a reticle when I look around, but if I mouse over my stump, I do, and it gives a nice little spin and then it fades out, and ta-da, I have transported. So this worked for us. Excellent. So I am going to post this in the class discussion board if you need it. I'll also have it on YouTube, but it's not useful to people unless they have the VR interaction utils, which come from the class. Thanks for listening if you're still with me.